Let's talk Tucker Carlson if we can, and his worry, his absolute worry that the horrific murder of Charlie Kirk might spur hate speech laws. Look at this.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. This is the Attorney General of the United States, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States, telling you that there is this other category called hate speech. And of course, the implication is that's a crime. There's almost no sentence that Charlie Kirk, and I'm not running the risk of appropriating his memory for my own ends by saying this, it's provable. There's no sentence that Charlie Kirk would have objected to more than that. And you've got to think the Attorney General didn't think it through and was not attempting to desecrate the memory of the person she was purporting to celebrate, that she just threw that out there, that she hadn't thought about it. You hope that. You hope that Charlie Kirk's death won't be used by a group we now call bad actors to create a society that was the opposite of the one he worked to build. You hope that. You hope that a year from now, the turmoil we're seeing in the aftermath of his murder won't be leveraged to bring hate speech laws to this country. And trust me, if it is, if that does happen, there is never a more justified moment for civil disobedience than that, ever. And there never will be. Because if they can tell you what to say, they're telling you what to think. There is nothing they can't do to you because they don't consider you human. They don't believe you have a soul. A human being with a soul, a free man, has a right to say what he believes, not to hurt other people, but to express his views.
Having listened to that for just a few seconds, I closed my eyes and I pretended, I changed the voice in my head. That was Bernie or AOC saying that. Perfectly reasonable, right? What Tucker said, what I heard was the voice of reason. Everything else is not, okay? And we're being gaslit and indoctrinated to believe. It's like after 9/11 when we were all shocked, scared, alarmed, willing to give up things that were prior to that somewhat pure, all in the name of safety. It was a grab. So Tucker Carlson recently held a panel to discuss the murder of Charlie Kirk. Live stream included panelists Megyn Kelly, Scott Adams, TYT's own Cenk Uygur, and Josiah Trenum. That part you just watched came from his 30-minute opening monologue there. Carlson brought up free speech, hate speech, and the potential for bad actors to use this death as an opportunity to limit the First Amendment. Here's the full clip from what AG Pam Bondi said about targeting hate speech.
I think now is exactly the wrong time to appropriate the memory of someone and the emotion that comes with that, the really intense emotion that all of us feel at his murder, and use it for your own parochial ends. Like, he stood for this, and I think the reason that Charlie was able to bridge the gap, particularly in foreign policy, is because he had, for example, genuine affection for Israel, which he expressed to me in private many, many times. Like, I love Israel. I don't think we should have another forever war, regime change war against Iran. I don't think it's helpful for people to jump in, particularly foreign heads of state, to say, this is what, he lived for my cause or whatever. That's disgusting, actually. Don't do that.
Yeah. So Tucker's comments come merely days after President Donald Trump said he supported Bondi, who faced bipartisan backlash Monday after declaring on a podcast, she was on there with Stephen Miller's wife, there's free speech and then there's hate speech, and there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society. Reminder, while it sucks, hate speech is protected. The First Amendment reads like it's protected. That's how we have to say it now. We can't just declare free speech is protected by the First. It reads to be that way, but we can't say it's absolute here. Not even close. Pam Bondi saying that they will target those who use hate speech is, well, it's terrifying. Here's what Tucker Carlson stated. You hope Charlie Kirk's death won't be used by a group we now call bad actors to create a society that was the opposite of the one he worked to build. You hope that. You hope a year from now, you heard him say the turmoil we're seeing in the aftermath of the murder won't be leveraged to bring hate speech laws to this country. And trust me, if it is, if that does happen, there's never a more justified moment for civil disobedience than that, ever. And there never will be. Because if they can tell you what to say, they're telling you what to think. And there's nothing they can't do to you because they don't consider you human. I mean, it's worth repeating. This is what I was talking about earlier in the show. North Korea, Russia. It's not just how you express yourself. They've indoctrinated people out of fear. This is what you will think. It's scary as hell. Human being with a soul, a free man, has a right to say what he believes, not to hurt other people, but to express his views. These are simple American things. It's what sets us apart. It did from the rest, right? Before we get to Pam Bondi trying to walk her comments, moonwalking back, we'll show you that. But Elliot, weigh in. Do you find anything objectionable that Tucker said in those clips?
Let me see. Yeah, not a word. It
Yeah.
reminded me of what the brilliant geniuses at The Onion once said, which is tragic. The worst person you know just made a great point. And that was a whole string of them. And he nailed it. I 100% think if ever there was an issue that we can actually come together on, it is this
Wow,
one.
yeah.
I mean, it is the most fundamental one. And just on a pet peeve level, though, when Bondi was talking to Nosferatu's wife there for a second about Charlie, the way she uses just his first name, like, oh, this is. Yeah, it's like, well, don't. That's the using him for your own purposes. Yeah. This sort of like assumed familiarity, like, oh, that's just Charlie, and you're clearly trying to endear yourself. And yeah, I think it's super gross. Yeah. So I'm glad she's walking it back.
Yeah, she was kissing up to those who loved him dearly and followed him. The 1 million people a day watching the podcast. That's what she was doing. And how do we know that? I feel more disdain for people like Pam who, will you stop? Stop faking the funk. This is not even who you, yesterday you weren't like this. I was told you were very reasonable, somewhat down in Florida, but you're really just all in.
This is like audience capture too. I mean, this is just her trying to grab some fans for whatever her next job is after this gig, whenever she inevitably goes to the podcast sphere, because they all get funneled into that eventually, I think.
She doesn't have a bad voice, but it's just something about that voice and the condescending lies that are being told that makes me, I don't want her on a podcast. But again, this is America. I wouldn't try to say, I wouldn't pull her podcast indefinitely. Okay. So here's what she said, trying to walk back her comments on X. How do you even walk that back? You were emphatic, Pam. You said you were going to crack down, something like they like domestic terrorist or something. You were going to go after them. And somebody mentioned Soros again. Isn't that man? Could you leave that man alone? I don't even think, stop already. You're just invoking his name all the time. Hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment. It's a crime. For far too long, we've watched the radical left normalize threats, call for assassination, and cheer on political violence. What would Trump say at those rallies? I'd like to beat him and get him out of here. That era is over, she concludes the statement. We're in a whoop-de-doo, upside down pineapple cake world. Okay? We are in some dark times. You are silencing people who, I'm still trying to figure out what Matthew Dowd said. Richard Nixon was dead for a few minutes, and I already heard the word Watergate 50 times. Okay, this is part of, what did he say that was so, are we this thin skin? Yeah, dear leader, I'll give you the last word. Elliot, am I too hard on Pam? You said you're happy she's walked it back.
Yeah, I mean, I thought maybe the walking would be a little further than that. That was still just sort of like
Yeah.
doubling down on it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, in terms of what the thin skinness, I think it's nuts. I mean, what this is what happens. People say mean things when things happen, either personally or collectively. It's a way of processing what's going on. It may not be good. It may not be like morally right. It may not be something I personally agree with, but like this is what it is. And this whole idea of being like, well, the other side is violent is just so transparent. Like, you know, it's all of us are violent in some capacity. So this is, I think, just
Stop.
another like political stunt.
Yeah, stop, Pam. You know better.